Ma'am, let us wrap up my contribution to this legislation by saying that the industry obviously needs regulation, but that it does not need regulation to the disadvantage of those who participate in the industry. And I have pointed to certain portions of the legislation that disadvantage those persons critically and centrally involved in the industry, and I won't do it again. And I have pointed to the disconnection, the dissonance if you prefer, to government's policy and the letter of this legislation, and to say to this House and to this public that this legislation seems to be traveling in a direction that is academic and theoretical, except that government is traveling in a direction that is not in the interests of the industry. In other words, this legislation, as I said this morning, and I say this without apology, this legislation as drafted reads very sweetly, but that sweetness does not extend itself to the way that government is treating the industry, and that is no criticism of the draftsperson, that is no criticism of he or she who has been hired to draft legislation for the regulation of an industry. The sin here today, and the sin that has been continuing for the last few months, is that the industry has been neglected and ill-treated by a government that lacks compassion towards the members of the industry. And that is why there's so much widespread dissatisfaction with the way in which government is treating the industry. And I go further and say that at every market, there's a repeated infrastructural problem. And I say repeated, that every few weeks, sometimes every few months, admittedly, the ice machines are not working. Certainly at Western, which is brand new, and we've applauded the government for building a brand new market, but it is not functioning in every aspect like a brand new market. It is not. So legislation is fine, but this government needs to bring itself to improving the infrastructure. This government needs to bring itself to modernizing Oistins in a way that accommodates the large number of boat owners, I beg your pardon, who reside, work, and operate, and even recreate in that southern portion of the island. A few years ago, and this is no personal or professional criticism of anyone, but we put a proposal to government to modernize that boatyard with a slipway for the haulage of boats up into the safety of a boatyard. Oistins is one of the few facilities that has a solid boatyard, terra firma, right next to the ocean. And we came up with more than one solution to the problem of boats having to have been kept in a confined area at Bridgetown. If the government had done then what we, and I don't say we brought engineers here. 4 engineers met at that facility, and this is no personal or professional criticism of anyone. I am speaking about government's dereliction and its duty to properly protect an industry against the hazards, against the elements. And if government had done that, some of those boats would have been on terra firma in Oistins, having come up from the sea on the vehicle that we proposed to the government ought to have been bought. We even came up with a price for the vehicle. Nothing was done, and what was done by the elements, and in a confined space. 90+% of the boats in the industry met destruction while the World Cup was going on, or while the World Cup was pending, while government was engaging in luxurious behavior, while a hurricane threatened, and while a minister in this government came afterwards and admitted that government had the technology to appreciate the severity of the hurricane, the event, and did nothing. The government was at cricket. Cricket took priority over the safety and the protection of an industry. I came very calm this afternoon, but I'm wrapping up. And this government must learn to accept criticism. This government must cease its intolerance to constructive criticism. And that is why what occurred on Wednesday is still causing ripples in this country. Don't ask me what occurred on Wednesday. The whole world knows what occurred on Wednesday. Gather within your bosoms, government, a tolerance to intelligent and constructive criticism, and stop believing that you are beyond government, that you are beyond criticism. You are not beyond criticism. You are not beyond criticism. Every instance of criticism is driving people to fear. It is not going to drive me to fear. Not going to drive me to fear. I am not afraid of any of you. Understand that. Understand that. Understand that now. And if there are others afraid, Your Honor, I am addressing you, ma'am.
I just want you, Madam Member, to explain in what context you're referring about being afraid.
Afraid?
What context are you
I am not afraid to criticize the government.
to criticize,
I am not afraid to criticize the government.
That was not clear.
And if I were afraid to criticize the government, I would be breaching my constitutional responsibility and my public responsibility. So it is not only Deuteronomy 31:6, I believe, ma'am, John 14:27, about which you and I spoke a few weeks ago. I am not afraid. I am not afraid to criticize this fallible government. So that if Wednesday, if 48 hours ago, troubles the bosom of this government, look for some more trouble, government. Look for some more trouble in the camp. Look for some more. And stop coming in to public office with the arrogance that you are not subject to criticism. The government is subject to criticism. Who does this government think it is? And when criticism is due, it will be heard. And if it is not heard on a Wednesday, it will be heard on a Tuesday. And if things are scheduled for Friday, it will be heard on Fridays. And so when I stand in this position and have to endure insult, abuse, asides, loud, silent, I will endure it. But it will not deter me, because the public is watching. The public is looking on at a government that is intolerant to criticism, and the public is judging. Understand that, government. Understand that. And the occasional smile, don't be misled by it. Don't be misled by it. I know how to smile and when to smile. But I know how the public feels. And I know that the public is not happy. And we're on fishing legislation, and I know that the fishing community is not happy. And I know that the fishing community is not happy by this government's practice and present practice of trying to divide and rule the industry by rewarding some, compensating some, and excluding the others. It is wrong. It is politically and morally wrong. And it must come to an end. And whoever feels badly about it, let them feel badly. This government is not behaving like a good government. Your Honor, I am obliged to you.